Here at the studios of WPSL, and Ask a Lawyer with your host, attorney Stuart M. Address.
I am gonna huff, and I am gonna puff, and I'm gonna try to intimidate the other side. Because right now, Dorian is huffing, and it's puffing, and I must concede, when I saw Category 4, he began to intimidate me.
It scares the hell out of you, is what it does.
I was okay with 2 or 3. 4 makes me a little bit nervous.
Well, you look at the damage that we had from Francis and Jean.
I'm about to talk about that.
Oh, man.
Today's programming about the Family and Medical Leave Act is hereby preempted to bring you coverage on Hurricane Dorian. All right, that's just me, folks.
Yeah, we could have done a whole rock and roll thing on that.
But I'm going to try to do it from a legal perspective.
Oh, I see.
Insurance and everything else. All right, let's start with our good old Cliff Desmond, who on the preceding show, Swap Shop, was talking a little bit with somebody about unlicensed contractors.
Oh, boy.
So let me start with a couple words about that. First of all, Cliff is correct in that in past storm situations, Florida has been flooded by unlicensed contractors because of the amount of work that needed to be done.
Yes, sir.
Indeed, even in normal situations, you will occasionally find unlicensed contractors to do any of a number of projects. It is a potentially serious problem for you. So, let me first start by telling you that under Florida statutes, particularly, 489.127, it says that an unlicensed contractor commits a misdemeanor of the first degree. It also says that any unlicensed contractor who has previously been found to have engaged in that activity commits a misdemeanor in the third degree. These are criminal offenses.
Yeah, but they're misdemeanors, though.
That may be true, but for them to get off, they're probably going to have to make restitution.
Yeah, right.
And that's really what you care about. You don't really care about them going to jail. You care about getting your money back if they hadn't finished the job, they didn't start the job, what have you.
Hell, I would. I'm Italian.
Then you do it another way.
Yeah, that's right.
I once had a very nice Italian gentleman that I dearly love, and is here from Sicily and still has his thick accent. And he once whispered to me very quietly about a certain situation, which I won't name. Would you like me to take care of it? I sort of knew what he was suggesting.
Yes.
And I knew that I did not want to say yes, because then I'd owe him a favor.
And he wasn't going through the chief judge in the circuit.
And I wouldn't know what the favor would be one day. So I said, no, thank you. I'll take care of it on my own.
Oh, my.
All right. In addition, if you have a situation with an unlicensed contractor, you can file an administrative complaint, in addition to going to a lawyer, with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation.
Ooh, okay.
Indeed, you can go to myfloridalicense.com. That's myfloridalicense.com. And you will find there that you can search the names of contractors to see if they have already been determined to be unlicensed. That's one thing that can help. You can also search to find out whether there are any public complaints against any contractors, licensed or unlicensed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's another nice thing to check. In addition to references on Yelp, let's see if anybody has complained to the state about a contractor, even if they're licensed. It takes you 5 minutes to do a Google search. You can also file a complaint online at myfloridalicense.com with respect to either a licensed contractor or an unlicensed contractor. So you can also search by name for a contractor to see if they come up as a licensed contractor in Florida. Another very effective help for you to protect you against hiring an unlicensed contractor. So I would definitely recommend myfloridalicense.com. It is operated by the state of Florida. It is a official Florida website that they maintain. So it's not a third-party site. You know, you can complain through there. You can file administrative complaints on your own or through an attorney. I see there is somebody watching that has done it on their own and through an attorney, that attorney being me. So, you know, as Dorian approaches, and hopefully it does a little bit of a jog here or there and misses us entirely, and maybe makes a quick north turn and
that's what we're all praying
goes
for.
up the coast,
Yep.
Without making landfall anywhere, and
Just like a Matthew.
whatever.
Yep.
But if it hits us in any way and we have damage, when you're getting that contractor, protect yourself. Because I've already had over the years numbers of calls about contractors who weren't licensed and about contractors who were licensed and won't finish the job or won't finish the job unless they get paid more money. We might as well start out by doing the best we can to protect ourselves.
You hear that a lot with pool builders.
Yes, and I was fortunate in that regard.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no.
My pool got built. There's a beautiful waterfall. I'm very happy about it. I had to yell at them a few times, but that's normal, to get them to do certain things. But I think that's normal. In the end, it was done very nicely, and I just hope the hurricane doesn't take my waterfall away.
Yeah, really.
All right. So, by the way, I'm going to do a pitch for myself. Anybody out there putting up and taking down hurricane shutters? If you are, hey, give us a call at 340-1590. I'm sure they'll pass your name and number along to me, and I'll give you a call. I am still looking for somebody to actually do that service for me at my home in Port St. Lucie, not my office. And if anybody knows anybody who still has propane, give us a call too, because I'd really like to know that. I have this empty propane tank in my trunk, and I'm looking for some propane. That's my problems. If you can help me, that's wonderful. And I was also thinking, I couldn't call Swap Shop because this is not permitted, but it's my show.
Why not?
Well, because you can't advertise a service.
Oh, I got you. Okay, that's right.
This is my show, so I can do that. I might be willing to swap, an hour of legal time for somebody that wants to put up some hurricane shutters and take them down.
There you go.
So if you have something that you need done or a nasty letter you need written and you want a lawyer, hey, call a lawyer. And maybe we could do a little bit of a barter arrangement. And again, I would ask you while I'm here, if you want to call the show at 340-1590, they'll take your name and number and I'll give you a call. As for other people who want to call us today, call us at 340-1590. Any topic goes, although today I am going to try to focus a little bit on Hurricane Dorian and insurance claims and things that you can do to protect yourself and how certain things work, so that if there is a problem, maybe you could have a leg up before you have to call a lawyer and everything gets really nasty.
So does the state really do anything with that?
The state
complaint?
does, in fact, suspend contractors' licenses.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes they will suspend the license until they finish the job or they pay you. So the state has the power of the hammer.
Okay. Our listeners are the best.
All right. I am just gotten a note that a certain place has a big truckload of propane.
Give their name. I mean,
all righty.
heck?
Well, then we're going to do that.
I don't care.
Since I have it in the back of my car, I know my girlfriend can't run out and get it unless she wants to pay for one, which I'll reimburse her. Jensen Beach Home Depot just got a big truckload of propane, I am told.
Bingo.
This has been a public service announcement from Ask a Lawyer.
And the manager of the Jensen Beach store send me a check. Oh.
All righty. Maybe the Home Depot will do some bartering with me now. All right, so let's talk a little bit. What's the current status of Dorian? You probably all know it. It is likely to make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. That's 135 miles an hour or more.
Sustained.
Right, sustained. I think when you get to 151, you're at Category 5. That is not forecast, but one never knows what happens in the warm waters. So, be aware that this is a serious, serious hurricane. I have lived through a few here in South Florida. I have lived through scares that didn't turn out to be anything. But when they were something, it's not pleasant. And for those of you on Facebook Live, one of whom is saying I'm coming in and out, it's a relative of mine. It's probably you. So go try another device. All right. It's also, right now at least, likely to make landfall in South Florida as of the 5 a.m. advisory. I also did see the 8 a.m. advisory. And as of the 5 a.m. advisory, there's a big cone. It takes up all of Florida. And because it's still too far out to really be that precise, and I realize that. But as of the 5 a.m. advisory, the line was hitting Jupiter.
Yep.
As the 8 a.m. advisory, it looks like West Palm. We're a little bit north of West Palm.
Keep it going south.
I have some people listening that don't want it to go south.
Oh, I know.
But unfortunately, I want it to go south, or I want it to go out to the ocean. I don't want it to touch me. So also keep in mind, the track and the cone, these are really important. You cannot be precise this far out. And even, the weather specialists, they tell you that. It helps to know where it's aiming, but that can change in a moment. Hopefully it does. But when you hear that a Category 4 is coming at you within, 25 miles of where you live, I'd say take your precautions and take them seriously.
If that high strengthens,
that's right.
That'll push it south.
That's right. And if the high weakens, the hurricane may take its northern turn earlier and go up the Atlantic and miss us entirely, except for some bad rain and a little bit of wind.
We're used to that every afternoon.
Which I would very much like. If it hits us, it looks like it would be strong enough to cross the state, cross over Tampa, get into the Gulf, possibly re-strengthen, and then be a danger to Louisiana or Texas. That's the worst possible situation.
Or North Florida.
Yeah, it hits Florida, and then it comes out and hits Florida again, or hits Texas, North Carolina. Texas or, Louisiana.
Yeah, the governor of Georgia's already declared an emergency.
That's right. Anyway, we do have Greg on line one. Hello, Greg. How can I help you?
Hey, good morning. I just have a question about, renters' rights in Florida.
Sure.
Preface this, I guess, by saying I do have renter's insurance through USA. It's really good insurance. And me and my family are doing rather well under this economy, but we still would struggle to leave the area for a hurricane and still be able to pay the rent.
Right.
This hurricane is coming at the end of the month. I talked to my boss. He said, oh, well, you're okay because a state of emergency was declared. You don't technically have to pay your rent until the state of emergency is lifted.
That's not true.
So, okay, that's what I wanted to know.
I can give that answer off the cuff without even thinking. That's not true.
Okay. All right.
Your lease with your landlord is a private contract, and the state has no authority to interfere with it. So your obligation is still to pay your rent.
I got you. Well, we paid it this morning anyways because the landlord wasn't too thrilled when I asked him.
I wouldn't expect he would be thrilled if he was asked, well, gee, I don't think I have to pay my rent because the governor declared a state of emergency. It would be nice if it were that way.
Yeah, and that emergency is going to last 10 years.
Yeah.
We also asked about boarding up the house.
Right.
It's his home we rented, but it's his home. Are you going to send anyone to board the house? He said, no, if you feel it's necessary, that's your responsibility.
Right. Now, that is something I was going to talk about. Mm-hmm. That is actually something that I have right here on my little notes to talk about. Taking protection to board up, put up shutters, whatever. If you are a renter, if it is in your lease that it is your responsibility, then it's your responsibility. However, if it is not in your lease that it's your responsibility, it is the landlord's responsibility to protect his property. And actually, if the landlord fails to take reasonable precautions to protect his property, then his insurance company might deny his claim when the property, the structure is damaged, and you may have a civil claim against your landlord for any damages you incur to your personal property that may not be covered by the fortunate renter's insurance that you do have. So yes, that is, unless it is in your lease, which sometimes happens in single property homes, unless it's in your lease, then this is a matter of common law, the landlord's obligation to protect his own premises, and insurance companies take that really seriously.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Take care and good luck. Hope everybody is safe.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye-bye.
Aren't landlords like condo associations
Yes.
responsible for
Same
all the
thing.
exterior? Okay.
That's right. Same thing. I love this. This is like when you're in trial. When you have an outline and something comes up and you've got to go jump to page 87. and that's what we're doing right now, and that's okay. Yes. An HOA, a COA, a trailer park at OA, whatever OAs there are, they have the responsibility to protect the structure. That is the exterior. It's probably in the Declaration of Covenants, the bylaws, or the rules and regulations. And if it's not, it's their responsibility anyway. So if they fail to put up hurricane shutters or, plyboard, whatever it is, they are running a risk with their own insurance and with a possible claim by you against them. Now, you should also look at really those rules and regulations and bylaws because, again, you can contract those rights to be shifted. So, if you're in, let's say, the type of association that's this large 5-story building, I'm going to think that they're going to be handling it.
Okay.
But if you're in a townhomes type of environment, they may have put in your lease that responsibility is yours.
So you basically own the whole thing?
Well, I mean, if you're renting, it doesn't matter, or if you own it.
Yeah.
It all depends upon the rights that you've agreed to in going into that community. So the first thing you do is you take a look at the Declaration of Covenants, you take a look at the bylaws, and you take a look at the rules and regulations. Whenever anybody calls my office with any type of an association claim, and I hear something that sounds like there may be a claim and I'm going to bring them into the office, I always, always, always say, bring a copy of the Declaration of Covenants, the bylaws, and the rules and regulations. First, you should probably have them anyway in your possession. If you don't, you can probably get them from the association, or even most associations of some size have them online. But those are the documents that I or any other attorney are going to want to see on any association issue as to whose responsibility is it, because I can go and tell you what the general law is, but I don't know if you've contracted away that particular responsibility. So that's the first place we have to look. Now, let's just give a few reminders since we know that Dorian is heading towards us. 2004, we had a little bit of an issue here in South Florida. I know I did in my own home, 2x4 through the den window, a bird cage that I first learned that's what it called, a bird cage around the pool that was half destroyed, and some other damage, mold, things like that. These are serious things. I mean, I think my claim, was probably around $30,000-$35,000 as a result of the 04 hurricanes. So these are not, fortunately back then the insurance company was wonderful to me, but after 04 a lot of them started abandoning Florida, and they're not so wonderful now when they deal with claims. And sometimes you got to go get a public adjuster, sometimes you go get an attorney. It depends.
They found our satellite dish 4 miles from the station.
Well, at least they found it.
Yeah. In pieces, but hey.
In 04, Charlie came by as a Category 4 hurricane, and it made landfall in Port Charlotte at 140 miles an hour. And then Francis came by as a Category 2 hurricane, making landfall in Sewell's Point, Hutchinson Island, Stewart at 105 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bit of damage from that Category 2 hurricane. And then 2 weeks later, we got a visit from Jean, which made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane at 120 miles an hour, again in Sewell's Point, Stewart. Let me tell you something. Port St. Lucie isn't so far from there that it wasn't really, really, really bad. I do remember, we had some damage from Francis, and then when Jean came 2 weeks later, my son was about, 2 months old.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent him and his mother into the laundry room, which was the only room in the house that had no windows. Very narrow room, no place to move really. Thankfully, he was really small. They spent the night in the laundry room. I spent the night in my family room for a reason. My head was looking straight up at the ceiling at my skylight.
Oh.
Because when rain sounds really rough and wind sounds really rough. When it's a skylight, the rain sounds really hard and the wind sounds even worse. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting to see if that skylight was going to give way.
Oh, boy.
Because I had known enough, I had learned enough already, that I knew that if it did give way, it wasn't just that I was going to get a lot of rain in the house. It was that wind tunnel was going to pull the roof off the house.
Yep.
And so while the mother and the child were safely in the laundry room, the stupid lawyer was in the family room just staring up at the skylight, praying that every little creak I heard wasn't the beginning of it losing structural integrity, which it did not, thank goodness. So those were 2, 3, and 4. Dorian's going to be a 4, and who the heck knows if it may be a little bit more than 135 or hopefully less. Take your precautions, because a safe home, an undamaged home, is a lot better than an insurance claim, let me tell you. All right. So, there are 2 types of insurance claims. They basically revolve around water damage and wind damage. Depending upon where you live, you may be in a flood zone. You may face a storm surge. There are separate policies that cover each of these types of events. If you don't have flood insurance and you're in a flood zone or you're not in a flood zone, if you're in a flood zone, you're probably required to buy flood insurance. Even if you're not in a flood zone, if the damage to your property is caused by water that comes in through the front door, the rear door, that's flood. That is not covered by your homeowner's insurance. It's not covered by your hurricane deductible. You're probably unprotected. And that's why they suggest that people buy flood insurance, especially here in Florida, even if you're a little bit inland. It's not a scam. It's actually very, very cheap because it's so rarely used. For a few $100s, you can probably protect your home against flood insurance as well. And it is now too late for this storm. It is too late to change your policy on any respect by any new policy. 72 hours before the storm is expected to hit when you're in the cone, most insurance companies cease writing policies or modifying policies. So for now, it's too late. But that's a flood insurance issue. Windstorm is really what is protected under your standard homeowner's insurance policy. Now, it does cover for water damage too. That's if it comes through the roof. Or let's say in my situation during Francis, a 2x4 comes flying through my den window.
Sure.
And the water starts coming in, and my den is underwater, my hallway's underwater, mold starts to grow in the laundry room, the kitchen, family room. It's all covered because it wasn't seepage, which is flood. It either came from above or in this case, it came by damage which was otherwise covered, a 2x4 through a window.
Yeah, projectile. You
Right.
bet.
So it's something to keep in mind when you're facing perhaps the next hurricane as to whether or not you want to check into flood insurance. And let me tell you, I'm not trying to sell it or anything. I don't sell flood insurance. It's not really a bad idea. Now, hurricane deductibles. Oh, this is a scary, scary, scary thing. Up until recently, there was only one type of hurricane deductible. 2% of the value under your insurance policy for your property. So let's say you picked a $500 deductible or $1,000 deductible, for anything else under your homeowner's policy. That's different from the hurricane deductible. The hurricane deductible is for hurricane, tropical storm, that type of thing. The hurricane deductible was 2%. So let's say your home was insured for $300,000. That's a $6,000 deductible for hurricane damage. Not your $500 deductible you may have purchased for every other peril. $6,000 for your hurricane deductible. Now, when I recently, about 3 years ago, bought a new house, I was asked a question which I thought was quite odd. Do you want to buy a lower deductible? I said, hurricanes? And yes. I said, what are you talking about? And they explained that a law had been passed, I guess it must be 3 or 4 years ago now, where you can actually buy down that 2% hurricane deductible. You can buy it down to 1%, or in my situation, I bought it down to the actual deductible that I had on the rest of the policy. And you want to know something? It doesn't cost very much. It really doesn't. I think for a few $100s extra, I got my, let's just say my $6,000 hurricane deductible down to $500.
Whoa, that's great.
So, of course, you can't do that right now for this storm, folks.
No.
But if your policy still says hurricane deductible 2%, I think it would be a good idea sometime after this storm to call your insurance agent and say, how much would it cost if I wanted to decrease the hurricane deductible to, 1%, or let's say the deductible I have for everything else. And find out the answer, because it may surprise you, and it may be something you want to purchase. Again, it's not really a legal issue. I mean, it's a legal issue in that it's a law, but it's more of a knowledge issue of something you may have the ability to purchase and save yourself a boatload of money so that if you need a lawyer for something else, you have that money. What can I tell you? All right, so now the timing for insurance. We sort of talked about that. You got about 72 hours before a storm is expected to hit where most companies will write policies. We are now within that window. So most companies are no longer writing policies. Now, there are some people and some policies that are slightly different. Hard to go into those details. But for the most part, it's almost universal. You can't change your policy or buy a policy within 72 hours of expected landfall. And that's sort of where we are now. Now, we were talking about earlier shutters, plywood, putting them all up, and we covered a little bit of it, but let me cover a couple of other points as well. Right now, a lot of people are putting up their shutters or plywood, but if they can't do that, or if they don't want to do that, can your insurance company refuse to pay for any damage? Let's say this is your home. You're not a tenant. Your home, and like I wasn't planning to until this morning. I wasn't really going to put up shutters. I really didn't want to go through the hassle, the aggravation, and the expense. If we were going to get hit with a Category 2 hurricane or a tropical storm, or maybe even a low 3, I think I was going to tempt fate and just wait it out. I've been through enough of them. A 4 is different. But let's say we got a 2. And let's say I just didn't do anything because that was my call. Can they refuse to pay for the damages? No. Unless, isn't the law wonderful? No. Unless your policy requires you to board up or put the shutters up. Unless your policy requires you to take that action. If you fail to take that action, they can't just deny your claim.
What if they say they're no longer riding in Florida?
Well, that happens all the time. They got to get the state's approval to leave, and they're still responsible for the damages that have been incurred while they're here. And, we had this in 2004, you had to create an insurance fund because a lot of the smaller insurance companies went bankrupt and they just had no money. Yeah, it's a serious issue. What happens if you're in, let's say, a condo association? And let's say it's the condo association's responsibility. And you're calling them, and they're just not doing it. Can you do it? Can the condo association block you from putting up shutters or plywood over the windows? No. They cannot. But if you put up the shutters or plywood and you drill any holes, you're going to have to pay for the repairs, for the damage. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you put holes, that's considered damage, and you may have to reimburse the HOA or the COA for those costs.
But would they be that picky if it's saving their building?
Well, if it doesn't cause any damage and now they have some damages, they have some holes in the wall, yeah, they'll be that picky.
Wow.
That's my experience, at least. Now, what if you prepare for the hurricane, but your neighbors don't? And they leave chairs on their balcony or lawn furniture in their backyard, and they become a projectile and damage your home. Are they responsible? You betcha. You better believe it. The law says that every homeowner has to act reasonably. And if your neighbor leaves those items out that we just discussed, it's a failure to act reasonably. And so damage that is caused to your property is damage that your neighbor is responsible for. And in fact, when you make your insurance claim and the insurance pays you for it, your neighbor may find they're getting a letter from the insurance company attorneys saying, pay us back, because it is their responsibility. Now, this also happens, hopefully less frequently, but since I deal with bosses, employers that are jerks all the time, it's part of my practice in employment law.
Thank you.
And discrimination and civil rights. Well, nobody said you were a jerk. And you're not covered by Title VII because you don't got 15 employees.
Oh, okay.
You're not covered by the FMLA because you don't have 50 employees. You're like basically skating by and do whatever the heck you want.
That could be a jerk.
Yes, you could be a jerk. What if hurricane's coming and your boss says, you got to work during the hurricane. And you say, no way, it's not safe.
That makes sense?
Can you be fired?
No.
Yes. Remember, Florida's an at-will employment state. You can be fired for no reason, a good reason, a bad reason, a fair or an unfair reason, a factually correct or incorrect reason. The only thing you can't be fired for is a violation of law. There is no law that prohibits an employer from firing you if you don't show up to work, even if it's because there's a hurricane, even if it's because your wife is in labor, even if it's because you're the one in labor.
If there's a curfew on the road and you can't get to work.
Well, now you're bringing up wrinkles. Now you're going into those exception
Well, I'm
areas.
just thinking back to Francis and Jean when we had the National Guard at every corner.
I hate to tell you, the answer is still no.
Really?
Even if the National Guard won't let you out, that has nothing to do with your private contract, which employment is, with a private employer. Now, your rights may be different if you are a public employee of some type. If you work for the school board and the governor declares a state of emergency, as he has, I haven't researched this particular issue, but I suspect you may have some rights if you can't get to work because the governor says you can't go to work and you're a public employee. Same thing for being a federal employee. If the president has declared a state of emergency, which he seems to do every week anyway, and you can't get to work, I would dare say that they can't terminate you. But I haven't actually researched that issue because I've never had anybody, come in with that problem. But the general moral of the story is, if your employer says come in during the hurricane, either come in or you risk getting fired. And it's not fair.
Wow.
There's no real law against it. And we have on line one somebody with the name of hieroglyphics. I can't make it out. Maybe this is shorthand of some kind. But whoever you are in line one, identify yourself.
He's a John.
John.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm okay. Quick question. I have some new neighbors. They're pretty nice people so far. They took down some old stockade fence, and they've got it piled and leaning against a pole or some, the posts.
Right.
And if that should blow, they're directly across from me. If that should blow across and do damage, to my shutters or
Right.
house, do I have recourse against them?
Yep.
Or do I just go to my homeowners?
Well,
or what happens?
first I would go to your homeowner's insurance, obviously.
Okay.
But the answer to your question is, as we just discussed, yes, I believe you would have recourse against them because they're failing to take appropriately reasonable steps to secure their property from damaging anybody else's property.
Yeah. Well, I can't collect twice, so what recourse would I have against
Oh, no,
them
no
if I-
double dipping, no double dipping. If your
Yeah.
insurance company pays, your insurance company will choose either to go after them or not go after them.
I
If your
see.
insurance company doesn't pay, then you have a civil claim against them.
Okay, all right. And I know a good lawyer.
Hopefully, give me a call.
Okay.
All right.
I'm glad this extra weight I'm carrying might pay off. I won't get blown around too much,
Yeah, well, I got some of that extra weight too, and I have
We'll
a
have to
feeling.
hold hands
I have a
for-
feeling
for
this could
this
be a
time.
Wicked Witch of the West, situation in The Wizard of Oz, and
I dated her sister.
I think I'd fly. I don't want to
dated
fly,
her.
but I think I'd fly. The
Well,
flying
thanks
nun.
a lot. Be safe.
The flying lawyer. You too. Take care. And that before we go on now to damage, let me jump in here while we have time. I haven't mentioned Cheryl, and I always mention Cheryl every show. So I'm going to mention Cheryl right now, and obviously you can call our office at 781-8003. Today you'll have to leave a voicemail. Cheryl is not there. Where did Cheryl decide to go? Disney!
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Where the hurricane is really, it looks like it's going right at
Yeah,
Orlando once it comes
sure.
inland. I talked to her about that yesterday, and she had a very good response, one which I actually took advantage of myself many years back during a tropical storm. She says, nobody's going to be there now. I'm going to go. We're going to go through all the ride lines with nothing. And if we get a little wet, we'll get a poncho. And it's going to be a wonderful day.
She's probably right.
She is probably right. and any rain will cool off the humidity. And, it's probably the best time to go to Disney. So everybody, go to Disney and make Cheryl's assumption wrong. Now, why do I want you to make her assumption wrong? Because Cheryl's only going to be with us for another week.
What?
Yeah, after 4 plus years, Cheryl came to me very nicely at the beginning of this week and, gave her 2-week notice. Cheryl has been offered a job, a non-legal job, at another location in Fort Pierce, where a relative is also employed and is going to make substantially more money than I can pay her. If it was close, I might have tried to entice her to stay. But given the number crunching, she's smart to take the job.
She's better off. Okay.
No,
Wow.
she's smart to take the job.
Yeah.
I see, Cheryl, if you're listening or if you play the tape back, you're going to have this for posterity. I am going to miss her. She has been an asset to my solo practice. Most of our clients and prospective clients who call our office say that, she treats them politely with respect, and that they get a sense that she cares. And obviously that's very important to them, and it's very important to me, both personally and, for my business. So we are in the process right now of looking for a new paralegal. I have a couple, ads out in good old Craigslist, the non-sexual part.
I was going to say Craigslist.
Well, that's where I found Cheryl. So
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's
really?
where I got a lot of
Wow.
resumes from Craigslist last time around.
Wow. Okay.
So I have it in Craigslist. And then Cheryl told me about another site that I had never heard of. I don't even remember the name of it now. It starts with an I.
How about LinkedIn?
I don't find that helpful.
Okay.
But I went to this other site and I filled out my whole profile. I put in the ad. I have three resumes that came in since yet last night.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to look at those and we'll see. And I suspect I won't have a replacement before she leaves because a week is pretty quick. But don't fret, folks. Somebody will get back to you, even if it's good old me. And soon enough, we will have a new paralegal. And there'll be somebody new for you to call. And somebody new for me to bust their chops here on the radio show. And I will certainly tell you their name and to call them and welcome them to Stewart M. Address, PA, and the Michigas of a radio show. So, bust their chops, him or her, depending upon, who gets hired. But this was probably a good point to let you know that Cheryl's going bye-bye. And if you want to call her and say bye-bye, as of Tuesday, if we're in the office, feel free to give a call. Don't send any packages with white powder, please. Even if it's, sugar or cake mix or something like that. It'll freak everybody out. And will immediately suspect my ex-wife.
Oh, no. You didn't.
It's a great pot shot, isn't it?
Oh.
All right. Okay, let's go back now to our regularly scheduled preempted programming. What happens if your car gets damaged?
Oh, that's a good one.
Now, I try to park my car horizontally against the garage door. Instead of vertical, horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering with my minivan now, I don't quite think I'm going to be able to pull that stunt off, even with good backup cameras. I think I'll get somewhat diagonal, but not horizontal.
Now, do you have the garage door bolt
What bolt?
that bolts onto the side? It's a hurricane bolt.
Beats me.
It's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Good to know.
Yeah, yeah. And then they have some that, you have a thing in the center of the garage door that goes into the ground, so you have the bolt and the other thingamabob.
I know I don't have that. But your car, it's hit by debris or it's flooded. I hate to say that word. There's a story there. Does your car insurance company have to cover that when it's caused by a hurricane? Let's say it happens on your driveway. Lawyers love all these facts. Happens on the road. What if it's on my driveway? What if it's in my garage? Well, I don't know how it's going to hit in your garage, but okay. The answer is yes. Presumably you have comprehensive insurance on your auto policy, often at a much lower deductible than your collision. And this type of thing would be covered by the comprehensive coverage on your auto policy. So if you have damage to your auto, that's not your homeowner's insurance issue, that's your auto insurance. So just keep that in mind. Now, the storm has passed. That's a hope, not a fact. And whatever damage is there, if any, is there. And now you got to deal with a claim. What do you do and what are your rights? The first thing to do is make sure you have irrefutable proof of your damages. And that means before this storm right now, please go take some photographs of the exterior of your home, front, back, sides.
Does video work?
Video works wonderfully.
What if you do it with your phone?
That's fine too.
Okay.
Take photos or video of the interior of your home. Open your closets and photograph or film that, the contents. If you have a claim, it's not just to the structure. Part of your homeowner's insurance policy is for contents.
Yeah, but don't they just give you one amount for the contents? No.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
If you're covered for $20,000, you better show $20,000 of damage before they're going to give you the $20,000.
I got you. Okay.
So if you have fur coats, you better make sure they're pretty clearly, shot. If you have expensive jewelry, if you have artwork, if you have, dare I say, firearms, if you have any collectible, if you have anything of value, make sure you have pre-storm photographs or video of it, because you're going to need that proof. Now, if you file a claim, the insurance company is required to acknowledge your claim within 14 days. That's Florida Statute 627.70131. And your rights as a Florida hurricane victim, there is a Bill of Rights for Florida homeowners. And included among them is to have that claim acknowledged within 14 days, to receive notice from your insurance company regarding how much of your claim is covered within 30 days of submitting your proof of loss statement, to receive the full settlement payment for your claim, or the undisputed portion of the claim, if there's a denial, within 90 days, for free mediation from the Florida Department of Financial Services, if you choose to, regarding your disputed claim, to have a neutral evaluation of your disputed claim if it involves a sinkhole, which is unlikely to happen right now,
That's a lot up in Orlando.
and to seek the assistance of the Florida Department of Financial Services, Division of Consumer Services, for the assistance with any claim, to give you more information. Another thing that is protected is what's called a valued policy law. That's Florida Statute 627.702. The valued policy law requires homeowners insurers to pay the dollar amount, the coverage limits, of the insurance policy when a property is so damaged that it is declared a total loss. So let's say your structure is insured for $450,000, and it is a total loss, and they offer you $377,000. No. Under the statute, if it's a total loss, they're required to give you that full coverage that you have.
So replacement value.
Not even replacement value. It's the coverage that you bought.
Okay.
You bought, if your property coverage is $400,000, $400,000.
Okay.
$397,000, $397,000. It's what you purchased if it's a total loss. And the interesting thing is there, you may still have the foundation if everything else gets blown away and can rebuild, and it'll cost you less to rebuild your home because you still have that foundation. Yet the insurer still has to give you the total value of your loss, and you're not going to have to rebuild the foundation. So you may end up with some pretty nice furniture you can buy, or a trip to Vegas or whatever you like. Last thing that I'll mention on this is the alternative procedure for disputed property insurance claims. And that's Florida Statute 627.7015. That statute describes your rights to request a non-binding mediation when your claim is disputed, in whole or in part. Now, in 2 minutes, let me tell you a couple other things. I also know that you've tried to negotiate with your insurance company, you've gotten so far, you can't get any further. You can hire a public adjuster. That public adjuster won't cost you anything up front, but it will cost you likely 20% of the additional amount the adjuster is able to get out of the insurance company. Sometimes that's a good value for you, and sometimes that's very expensive. If you have to sue, Florida statute provides that if your attorney gets even $1 more from the insurance company has to pay the attorney's fees, not you. So that's good. So, in the last minute, let me simply say that I certainly hope that you're all taking precautions. I hope you're taking it seriously. I do know, and even though I know that this is, we have the owner of the station sitting next to me, I do believe that the media overhypes sometimes every 5 minutes. But when you see a Category 4 coming at you, that's not hype. That's something to protect yourself against. And hopefully you end up safe, and hopefully it moves, and hopefully you say this was a waste of time. But if that's the case, be happy for your waste of time and the little expense you incurred. That's a lot better than losing your home. And this is Stewart Address. We'll be back next Friday, assuming the earth still exists, for Ask a Lawyer. And I hope you all get through the weekend and the beginning of next week safe. I hope your property is safe, your family and your friends. But do take whatever precautions you can. Thank you, and goodbye for now.
You've been listening to Ask a Lawyer right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.